Hi, I'm Ali and welcome to our channel Concentric TV, where we provide expert advice to help landlords navigate the ever-changing rental market. Today, we're talking about the importance of regular reviews on your property portfolio and investments, so let's get started. Now, before I get into this, the reason I wanted to share this quick video with you is because it's the turn of the new year and I think that's the perfect time to be reassessing things and reviewing your portfolio and property investments. Ultimately, we want to make sure they're in good health, we want to make sure they're still performing as they should be and returning what you expect to return, because let's be honest, that's the reason that you got into property investments. So let's run through my 6 key points when auditing your property investments and portfolios. Number 1, check compliance. Now this is a big one. In fact, this is the most important one in my opinion, okay? There's already over 170 pieces of legislation and there's only going to be more to come with things like the Renters' Rights Bill making its way through Parliament. There's going to be some big changes throughout 2025 as we see. So staying compliant is absolutely critical and you've got to be prepared for those changes. And of course, if your compliance isn't up to scratch, if there are things that you've missed, you run the risk of potential fines and prosecution and banning orders, and a lot can go wrong. You've got a lot of risk, okay? And a lot of these things, the fines are starting to become unlimited and local authorities have got a lot of power now to prosecute landlords. So number 1, check compliance. So I'm talking things like your safety certificates, making sure you've issued the right things to your tenants. Is your tenancy agreement up to date, and your documentation and paperwork? Have you got tenant IDs and right to rent on file and that sort of thing? Think about soft furnishings and smoke alarms and all that sort of stuff. Make sure they're in place. Right to rent checks, EPCs, it's all of that sort of stuff, okay? So you're just going to go through with a checklist and you're going to check the current health of your tenancy, and anything missing you're going to have to obviously work hard to rectify and make sure that you're in good shape as we move forward into the year. So that's number 1, big one for me. Check compliance and keep yourself safe. Okay, so now that we know you're fully compliant, number 2 is we're going to review the rental income. Now again, this is super important, and you might actually be a landlord who's sitting there thinking, well, I actually regularly increase my rents, but here's a couple of stats for you, okay? Since around about 2020, the start of 2020, property values on average in the UK have gone up the best part of 10% a year, okay? We're now in 2025, so that's quite a considerable increase in the last 5 years alone. Now, that's for new tenancies, that's for new lets. When properties hit the open market and a new tenant moves in, that's the increase recorded in new lets. However, on existing tenancies, so when you've got a longer term tenant in situ, the average increase throughout that time is only 4% a year. So even if you're one of those landlords who has regularly increased your rental income or increased your rents with your current tenants, you still want to look at this, because let's be honest, costs have risen, mortgage interest rates have risen, the cost of maintenance is higher, the cost of management is higher, the cost of insurance is higher, everything seems to have gone up, right? So if you're looking at this from a business point of view, there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be regularly reviewing your rental income and making sure that you adjust your rental amounts in line with the current market. As long as it's fair and reasonable, you're doing absolutely nothing wrong as landlords and business people, okay? So really important you assess the rents. Now, a few key things to remember: you can only increase your rents at least once every 12 months. You can't increase your rent during a fixed term contract, so it has to be in a periodic or at the end of a fixed term tenancy. But all you're going to need to do is have a look at the current market, what else is out there, look for similar properties and what they're going for, and then you can make your assessment on where your rent should be off the back of that information. So nice and easy. But number 2 is just check where your rental income is, and if it's falling behind the curve, then it's time to think about doing something about it. So that moves me nicely on to my 3rd point, which is assess your yields and performance across the portfolio. Especially if you've got a portfolio, some properties are going to be performing better than others, and it's really, really crucial for you to actually see exactly what the strongest performers are and what the weakest performers are, so that you can make some informed decisions and make some changes. Now this is quite a simple exercise. All we're going to do is assess the income versus the outgoings. So you can offset all those costs, and by the end of it, you're going to be left with a number, a net figure. You can work out the percentage, so you can see actually what the percentage return on investment is, and then you'll be able to see which part of your portfolio is outperforming the other and make some decisions moving forward. Maybe it's time to offload some. Maybe it's time to see that actually these work better, so next time I invest, I'm going to go for something similar because I know that they work, it's a proven model. But once you run that exercise, you'll be in a really good position to make some informed decisions. Now, I really hope you're finding this content useful so far, so if you are finding the video helpful, subscribe to our channel for more landlord training videos just like this one. So moving on, point number 4. This is a big one again. Review insurance and protection across your portfolio and tenancies. So there's a few different types of insurance that you want to consider. Firstly, you've got specific landlord buildings insurance. You want to make sure it covers things like tenant damage and stuff like that. make sure it protects income if the property is ever inhabitable, but also you've got other types of insurance around protection of rental income, such as if your tenant stops paying, you want to make sure you're still receiving income in event of non-paying tenant, and if you then have to eventually evict a tenant, perhaps you want to think about legal cover, which would cover the whole cost of the eviction and all that sort of stuff in the background, your legal fees. So really time to review your insurances, and I guess the key is just make sure that you have the adequate protection, okay? Make sure that you invest the money in ensuring that should anything go wrong, you are not going to suffer or be too far out of pocket, especially if you're in a position where you're really relying on that rent to cover costs, okay? So obviously depending on your situation, depends on your needs, but review your insurance, make sure you read through the policies, make sure it actually covers the real key important things that you need it to, and that's my top tips around reviewing insurance and protection products. Now, I have a question for you. Are you spending too much time managing your properties and tenancies? Well, look, my fifth point is it time to evaluate your management strategy? Now, this video, we've already covered points around compliance. Compliance is almost a full-time job. There's so much to remember. We've covered points around regularly reviewing your rents. Again, it's super important to make sure that we're getting the most out of our investments from a rental point of view to offset against the higher costs and that sort of thing. Now, other things around management, of course, is maintenance and managing tradespeople and hearing from tenants at all times of the day and that sort of thing. Maybe it's going back through invoicing and putting that together and tidying that up for accounts at the end of the year. Whatever it is, the real conversation comes down to self-management versus hiring a management agent. And actually, for a certain percentage a month, maybe it's time to talk to a managing agent that aligns with your way of doing things and frees your time up moving forward. And finally, point number 6 is consider expanding or streamlining your portfolio. Now, for me, this is the exciting bit. This is the bit where you might get to do a few deals. Now, hopefully during this audit, hopefully during this review, you'll have identified if there's any weak performers. Perhaps it's time to offload those to free up some capital to invest in something that might be a little bit stronger performing in the future. Maybe it's time to consider some other types of investments, such as maybe a block of flats or a HMO or something different to what's already in your portfolio. But whatever it is, certainly consider what you need to do to get that portfolio in better shape and invest better for the future to get better returns and run at a more profitable level. So there you have it. There's my 6 key things to consider when reviewing your property portfolio and buy-to-let investments, from compliance to rental income to protection. It's all in there. So to help get you started, here's a free gift for you. You can click the link now and download my free complimentary compliance guide checklist. Compliance is the #1 thing that can catch you out. There's more to think about. The risks are huge. So let's get that compliance in place today. So download the free checklist and hopefully that will get your audit started on a nice journey. Thank you so much for sticking with me until the end of this video. There's a bunch of different videos covering lots of different topics for landlords and investors on our channel. So please subscribe and there'll be future updates coming too. See you there.